Your time has expired. Senator Urquhart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy President. I also rise to take note of the answers provided to Senators McCarthy and Dodson from Senators Fifield and Scullion on the cessation of ABC's shortwave radio and the poor management of the Indigenous Advancement Strategy grants. I guess what these senators on my left were asking was simple questions that I think could have been given very clear answers, but wasn't, on critical services that apply to rural and regional Australia and also Indigenous Australians. They were very simple questions, and they both were at the heart of clear problems with the Abbott-Turnbull government's cuts to vital services and lack of consultation. We see that very clearly. The cessation of the shortwave radio service is yet another example of Prime Minister Turnbull's confusion over innovation and reality. The ABC and the government have displayed a complete lack of understanding, absolute complete lack of understanding of the services in communications that are available to people in remote outback Australia. People have been told that they should subscribe to the new viewer access satellite TV, sat phones and internet services. But this advice completely misses the point that these services are scratchy at best and not available to people on the move. As Minister Scullion surely knows, and I would hope that Minister Fifield knows, it can take many hours to travel from one end of one property to another. And if the weather is inclement, satellite services might not even work across that journey. And it's as though the ministers expect the people of remote Northern Territory to travel in the countryside in a massive bus, akin to the one of Priscilla of the Desert, with a huge, outrageous satellite on the top. It's not the reality of what we would expect. Because of the campaigning of Senator McCarthy and our colleagues in the lower house, Mr Gosling and Mr Snowden, the government was forced to at least make a comment on this issue, at least make a comment. But late in the piece, just a few weeks before the shortwave service was to be cut, Minister Scullion made a late attempt to save face with his constituents in the outback. But his worth in Cabinet must be questioned, because his colleague, Minister Fifield, can do is blame the ABC. Just blame the ABC for a decision that this government made to cut that back. Both ministers have a very short memory about their budget cuts to the ABC, but they're trying to hide the fact that under their watch, $254 million have been cut from the ABC's budget, and now all they can do to say about these services is, well, it's the ABC's decision. Well, of course, the ABC has to make decisions around budget cuts when the cuts are coming from this government. But it's also important to note that this cut to shortwave, as I think Senator McCarthy made reference to, doesn't just impact Australians. Millions of people in Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Fiji and right across the breadth of the South Pacific rely also on shortwave radio for information on natural disasters, which this is an area that we know has a number of these, and news about the world. At a time when China, New Zealand, the UK and Germany are expanding their shortwave services into the Pacific, the Turnbull government sleep at the wheel and completely lacks any understanding of the availability of digital satellite technology in remote communities across the Pacific and across the top of Australia. Does the minister and the Prime Minister seriously believe that people in remote villages on Pacific Islands have access to digital radios? You know, come on. It's a critical time for Australia and the Pacific, with the referendum in Bougainville coming up, with the withdrawal of Ramsay in Solomon Islands and with the push by China and other people to increase their influence. And yet this government cuts off our direct line to the people. And for what? A total saving for the ABC of $1.8 million. It's outrageous. The ABC and the government have claimed that another reason for ending the shortwave service is a lack of understanding about the number of listeners. And yet there is evidence from Papua New Guinea that over 20% of that population listened to Radio Australia either on the day of the survey or the day before. Minister Fifield spent a lot of time blaming the ABC board for this decision. I think it's time that the ministers in this government stood up and represented the people in those communities and listened to the people in those communities about their needs.
Thank you, Senator Urquhart. Your time has expired.